Hello and welcome to the Armenian News Network Groong Week in Review. This show was recorded on Monday, October 10, 2022. I'm Asbed Bedrossian and I'm here with Hovik Manucharyan. Before we begin the show, we'd like to request that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe and rate our podcasts, which you can listen to wherever you get your podcasts. We're very active on Facebook, both as a group and a page, and all of our Groong links are on our Linktree page, and we'll make sure you can find that on our profile pages so you can click on it and find us all over social media platforms. So if you like our shows, please share with your friends and follow us everywhere you are used to getting your news. Thanks, and on with the show. Here are the major topics we'll touch on today. At last week's first ever European Political Community meeting in Prague, there were multiple meetings between the leaders of Armenia, Turkey, and Azerbaijan. We'll talk about what all that means for the security and status of Nagorno-Karabakh, the civilian EU monitoring of the border between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and more. We'll then discuss some very questionable appointments by the National Assembly, installing essentially ruling party apparatchiks to key judicial and election oversight positions, undermining important democratic institutions in Armenia. Finally, we'll have a couple of personal statements from show participants. Now, to talk about all these issues, we have with us Benyamin Poghosyan, who is the chairman of the Yerevan-based think tank Center for Political and Economic Strategic Studies. Welcome back, Benyamin. It's always great to have you back on our show.
Hi, Benyamin. Welcome back.
Hello, Asbed. Hello, Hovik. It's a pleasure to be with you again.
All right. The first meeting of the European Political Community took place in the Czech capital, Prague, on Thursday. On the sidelines of this meeting, Pashinyan met with Turkish President Erdogan, which was a first for them. Pashinyan also met with Azerbaijan's President Aliyev separately, and then also in a four-way meeting in the presence of EU co-president Charles Michel and French President Macron. First question, Benyamin. This being a first, what is the European Political Community?
Thanks, Asbed. Very interesting question. And frankly speaking, I'm not sure that anyone, including the author of this idea, President Macron, had a clear answer to this. Some believe that this European political community is a first step to recreate or reshape European security architecture without Russia. But for me, this does not sound logical because I don't believe that any European security architecture is possible without Russia. So if the idea is this, I'm afraid this is going to be a failed idea. Some believe that this is simply personal PR for President Macron, who believes that after long-time German Chancellor Angela Merkel left the scene, now this is the right moment for Macron to be a real leader of Europe, or a real leader of even not EU, but Europe, because European political community, it was more than 40 states, 27 states of EU, plus a lot of other states. So this is like personal PR, which will allow Macron to at least feel as a new leader of Europe, or new leader of wider Europe, EU plus others. Regardless what is a more real reason or option behind this European political community, I believe there is a lack of understanding among participants. There is a lack of vision, and nobody understands what does it mean. Does it mean that, for example, these EU candidate states, Western Balkans, Turkey, and the new candidate states like Ukraine and Moldova, which received the candidate status only several months ago, are these European political communities a way somehow to still keep them away from EU and create like two-track Europe with 27-member EU as a core and some other countries outside? Or this has nothing to do with EU enlargement, and regardless of establishment of European political community, EU enlargement will continue both in Western Balkans, first of all, and then probably also in some countries of Eastern Partnership like Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia. So there are a lot of questions and few answers.
Pretty interesting. Pashinyan's meeting with Erdogan was relatively quick, and both leaders reported that they confirmed their desire to swiftly implement the agreements reached by the two special reps of Turkey and Armenia for the so-called normalization process. At this point, that means opening the borders for cargo by air and land border crossings for citizens of third countries. Okay, quote-unquote, that last part. Are these statements, Benyamin, commensurate to summit-level result expectations? What do you think?
Okay, I believe everyone understands that despite all the statements from the beginning of this new phase of Armenia-Turkey normalization process, which started in January 2022, with a meeting of Armenian Turkish special representatives in Moscow, that regardless of all these statements, that negotiations are without conditions, and there are no conditions or preconditions to normalize relations between Armenia and Turkey. Everyone who follows Armenia-Turkey relations history starting from 1991 until 2022, everyone knows very well that Turkey has several preconditions. Of course, before 2020 war, the precondition was that Armenia should end the so-called occupation of Azerbaijani lands. And my understanding is that after 2020 war and the signature of November 10, 2020 statement, Turkey was mostly satisfied. But even after that, when the process started in January 2022, Turkey at least has one basic precondition. Any real movement on Armenia-Turkey normalization process is possible only if Armenia signs peace treaty with Azerbaijan. And by the way, even after the meeting with Prime Minister Pashinyan, during his press conference, President Erdogan stated it very, very clearly that Turkey will immediately open its land border with Armenia, including even the railway route Kars-Gyumri, the next day after Armenia and Azerbaijan signs peace treaty. So at least one precondition was there starting from January 2022. And again, everyone involved in the negotiations or everyone following Armenia-Turkey relations knew very well that all these statements about no preconditions, discussions without preconditions, this is a blah, blah, blah. In reality, there was a precondition number one. Armenia should sign peace treaty with Azerbaijan and should sign peace treaty with Azerbaijan based on Azerbaijani terms, which means that Armenia should recognize Azerbaijani territorial integrity, including Nagorno-Karabakh, and Armenia should drop its demand even for autonomy for Nagorno-Karabakh, simply accepting that there is no territorial administrative unit as Nagorno-Karabakh within Azerbaijan.
Mm-hmm.
So this was Turkey's number one precondition. Armenia should sign peace treaty with Azerbaijan and should forget about Nagorno-Karabakh. But I don't exclude that there are also other preconditions too, probably one related to the international recognition of Armenian genocide. Most probably, Turkey also will demand Armenian government to officially drop as the international recognition of Armenian genocide as a part of its foreign policy, and saying that, okay, this is only the business of diaspora Armenians, let them do whatever they want, and let them do to demand from Turkey whatever they want. But if the second precondition regarding Armenian genocide is, we may say, okay, probably there is second precondition, probably there is no second precondition. The first precondition, signature of Armenia-Azerbaijan peace treaty completely based on Azerbaijani terms and fully satisfying Azerbaijani demands. This is a clear, and it was again reiterated by President Erdogan on October 6, 2022, during Prague summit.
So should we assume, given what you said, that this was mostly a photo op for Erdogan so that he can stymie third parties from pressuring him on Armenian issues?
I believe first, this was a photo opportunity for Erdogan. Second, this was an opportunity for Erdogan to directly say to Armenian Prime Minister, if you really want improvement in Armenian-Turkey relations, sign peace treaty with Azerbaijan based on Azerbaijani terms. Satisfy Azerbaijani demands, and you will have happy relations with Turkey.
So on to the meeting with Aliyev. Pashinyan had a one-on-one meeting with Aliyev, who on the day of the meeting shared a provocative tweet saying we will restore, quote, Karabakh and Zangezur. After the meeting, a vague reference about some progress on transport links was announced, which would be part of the eventual peace plan. Aliyev also put out a boilerplate statement about making progress towards the peace agreement, while at the same time complaining that Pashinyan will not give him a certain road that he wants. Basically, he mentioned something to the effect of, tell us where our road will go through, or our corridor, as Azerbaijan likes to say. Pashinyan tweeted the following morning that Aliyev did not respond positively about his proposal on unblocking regional communications. There are some mixed reports about whether the status of Artsakh or Nagorno-Karabakh Armenians was discussed. Also, it's important to mention that throughout this whole time, Azerbaijan kept spreading fake news about Armenian ceasefire violations, including essentially forcing the Armenian Defense Ministry, I believe 3 times today, to deny that it was firing on Azerbaijan. Benyamin, what is the nature of Pashinyan's proposal about unblocking of all regional communications with full respect of our sovereignty and legislation that apparently Aliyev did not respond positively to?
I believe when we are speaking about this restoration of communications and corridor issue, Maybe we should try to understand that there is a difference for Azerbaijan between the issue of Nagorno-Karabakh or Azerbaijani demands for Armenia to forget about Nagorno-Karabakh and accept that Nagorno-Karabakh is Azerbaijan and Nagorno-Karabakh should be part of Azerbaijan without any status or zero status, and the establishment of corridor. Because starting from November 2020, Azerbaijan was sending messages to Armenian authorities, to international community, to Armenian society that both the inclusion of Nagorno-Karabakh within Azerbaijan with zero status and the establishment of the Zangezur corridor, which would mean the establishment of the highway and railway via Sunik from Azerbaijan to Nakhichevan with no Armenian border control and passport control and customs control. These two are equal significant things for Azerbaijan. And by creating this narrative, it also created the perception in Armenia that, okay, if Azerbaijan has two demands, Nagorno-Karabakh and corridor, and because Azerbaijan won 2020 war, it means that Armenia is no position to reject both two demands, but at least Armenia has a choice to accept one demand or second. And after these considerations, there was a perception, at least in part of Armenian society, expert community, and also the government, that if Armenia has no choice to reject both Azerbaijani demands, like Nagorno-Karabakh with zero status within Azerbaijan and Zangezur corridor, but if we have opportunity to accept one demand and reject another, it's better for Armenia to say that, okay, we will accept Nagorno-Karabakh within Azerbaijan with zero status, but we will never agree to the establishment of Zangezur corridor. And frankly speaking, when we are reading the Prague's statement regarding the recognition of territorial integrity of Armenia and Azerbaijan, mutual recognition of territorial integrity based on UN Charter, but especially is based on the Almaty Declaration of December 1991, which was a declaration of the establishment of the Commonwealth of Independent States. This actually means that Armenia recognizes Azerbaijan with its 1991 Soviet borders, including Nagorno-Karabakh. Of course, Armenian government, Nagorno-Karabakh Republic authorities may state that, but when Nagorno-Karabakh Republic declared its independence on September 2nd, 1991, fully in line with international and domestic Soviet rules, starting from September 2, 1991, Nagorno-Karabakh was not part of Soviet Azerbaijan, which means that when Almaty Declaration was adopted in December 8, 1991, Nagorno-Karabakh was not part of Soviet Azerbaijan, which means that if you recognize Azerbaijani territorial integrity within this 1991 Almaty Declaration, it means that you recognize Azerbaijani territorial integrity without Nagorno-Karabakh Republic. But I am afraid that no one reads the Prague statement of October 6, 2022 in this way. All external players, Azerbaijan, Russia, European Union, France, United States, everyone, reads the Prague statement of October 6 as a clear statement that Armenia recognizes territorial integrity of Azerbaijan, including Nagorno-Karabakh. And because there is no mention of Nagorno-Karabakh, or there is no mention that at least some status of Nagorno-Karabakh should be discussed within Azerbaijan, then we may come into understanding that at the end of the day, Armenia is ready to accept so-called no status for Nagorno-Karabakh within Azerbaijan, only urging for some protection of rights and security guarantees for Armenian population or Armenian ethnic minority within Azerbaijan, but without any status.
Like, I still have a trouble understanding what exactly is, not being agreed on, because as far as I know, you mentioned that Armenia has agreed that it will sign a so-called peace treaty without any mention of Artsakh status. The de facto leaders of Armenia have sheepishly said that they only want their 29,800 square kilometers. And also, there seem to be some statements about reciprocity, whether it was Overchuk who said that in the past, or whether there was this, we don't know whether it's correct, but there was a leaked copy of the agreement between Hikmet Hajiev and Armen Grigoryan in Washington, D.C. that also said that the roads connecting Armenians with Artsakh and Azerbaijan with Nakhichevan should be based on reciprocity in terms of the control over them. So what exactly are they not agreeing upon, that there are still like sort of shots fired on the border, and there's still, apparently Pashinyan says that Aliyev is not happy about his proposal?
Okay, my understanding is that by creating the so-called false choice or fake choice for Armenia, like give up Nagorno-Karabakh or provide us with Zangezur corridor, Azerbaijan essentially solved the first significant questions for him, or the most important question for him. According to Prague statement, Armenia recognizes Nagorno-Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan. If peace treaty is going to be signed within framework of this Prague statement, and most probably Azerbaijan demands that peace treaty will be signed until end of 2022. And by the way, today, I believe on October 10, when Aliyev had a phone call with Secretary of State Blinken, he also stated that if Armenia provides political will, the peace treaty may be signed until end of 2022. So from Azerbaijani perspective, I believe they gave Armenia some ultimatum that either Armenia signs a peace treaty with Azerbaijan, which will mean that Armenia recognizes Nagorno-Karabakh within Azerbaijan with zero status, and there will be no board of Nagorno-Karabakh even in this peace treaty until or by end of 2022, or Armenia should embrace itself for another 44-day war, or the new 44-day war, but this time in the territory of Armenia. But second, if Armenia accepts Nagorno-Karabakh within Azerbaijan with zero status, and the issue of Nagorno-Karabakh will become only the issue of Armenian ethnic minority within Azerbaijan, like there are issues of Lezgin ethnic minority with Azerbaijan, Talish ethnic minority with Azerbaijan, or any ethnic minority with any country. From this perspective, there is no logic to have Lachin corridor, because what does it mean Lachin corridor, or any corridor? There should be corridor which should connect Armenia with some territorial administrative unit inside Azerbaijan, Armenian territorial administrative unit inside Azerbaijan. It could be Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Republic, Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Region, or anything. But if there is no Nagorno-Karabakh inside Azerbaijan as a territorial administrative unit, it means that the whole concept of Lachin corridor becomes senseless. So why you need corridors? The corridor connects Armenia with what? If there is no territorial administrative unit as Nagorno-Karabakh. So if there is no Lachin corridor, then there should be no any corridor which will connect Azerbaijan with Nakhchivan. But again, I'm afraid that by creating these false narratives that Nagorno-Karabakh and so-called Zangezur corridor are equally important for Azerbaijan, then Azerbaijan triggered us to make a choice. Either corridor, either you are providing us corridor, or you giving up or abandoning Nagorno-Karabakh. And my understanding is that the current government made a decision, okay, let's reject the notion of corridor, let's protect this 29,800 square kilometer of territory, and let's accept that there will be zero status for Nagorno-Karabakh within Azerbaijan, while the rights and other issues of ethnic Armenian minority within Azerbaijan will be discussed in the context of as an ethnic minority issues within Azerbaijan. Like it will be the issues for securing rights of Azerbaijani citizens of Armenian origin. And again, if peace treaty will be signed within the framework of this Prague statement, and if peace treaties will be signed by the end of 2022, again, it will mean that yes, Armenia accepts that there is no Nagorno-Karabakh as territorial administrative unit, while Armenia will try to use foreign partners, United States, EU, maybe Russia, I don't know, to try to secure the rights of Azerbaijani citizens of Armenian ethnic origins.
Yeah.
But there is also one important issue. We may ask ourselves, but why EU and the United States are so much interested for peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan, which also will de facto fix zero status for Nagorno-Karabakh within Azerbaijan and transform the Nagorno-Karabakh issue into the issue of protection of Azerbaijani citizens of Armenian ethnic origins. Because if there is no Nagorno-Karabakh as a territorial administrative unit, even as an autonomy within Azerbaijan, then there is no need for having Russian peacekeepers in Azerbaijan. Because Russian peacekeepers are deployed in Nagorno-Karabakh according to November 10, 2020 trilateral statement. But if peace treaty signs between Armenia and Azerbaijan, this peace treaty will somehow cancel the trilateral statement. Because trilateral statement was a statement of ceasefire, while peace treaty will be a peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan, ratified by parliament, etc., etc. And the peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan signed, which will envisage zero status or no status for Nagorno-Karabakh within Azerbaijan, then Azerbaijan automatically may raise the issue of withdrawal of Russian peacekeepers from Nagorno-Karabakh, if not immediately, at least after November 2025. And the same will happen for Lachin corridor. Maximum Azerbaijan may say, okay, because of the trilateral statement of November 10, 2020, I will agree that Lachin corridor should function as far as Russian peacekeepers deployed there until November 2025. But after November 2025, sorry guys, there is no sense to have a corridor which will connect Armenia with Azerbaijan. Because again, if there is no Nagorno-Karabakh as territorial administrative unit, there is no need for a corridor which connect Armenia with Azerbaijan. And regarding the Zangezur corridor, yes, if there is no Lachin corridor, there should be no Zangezur corridor. But frankly speaking, I don't believe that Azerbaijan and Turkey will forget about their main goal, which is to have physical control over portion of land and to have direct land connection between Azerbaijan and Nakhchivan, but not as a highway or as a corridor, which will be officially Armenian territory and will be controlled by Armenians, even if...
You're saying it needs to be an extraterritorial?
Yes, extraterritorial, because from Azerbaijani point of view, even if there will be no Armenian border on passport control on the entrance and exit, if the highway is within Armenian territory, it means that Armenia controls it. And every moment, Armenia simply can close this highway for several reasons, which means that Armenia will receive additional leverage to put pressure on both Azerbaijan and Turkey, because this corridor would not only connect Azerbaijan with Nakhchivan, it will connect Azerbaijan with Turkey. So even if peace treaty is signed and we accept that there is no territorial administrative unit, no Nagorno-Karabakh as territorial and administrative unit within Azerbaijan, and transforms the issue of Nagorno-Karabakh into the issue of protection of Azerbaijani citizens of Armenian ethnic origins. And if then Azerbaijan will say, okay, there is no logic for having Lachin corridor, and we will say, okay, in that case, forget about your demand of Zangezur corridor. But again, Azerbaijan may forget its demand about Zangezur corridor as a highway which passes through Armenia, but has no Armenian passport and border control. But Azerbaijan and Turkey will never drop their desire to physically take some part of Armenia and have a physically control of a portion of territory which will connect Azerbaijan with Nakhchivan.
So Benjamin, when you say that they will never do that, I think you are saying basically that they will either not negotiate this point away, or that after a so-called peace treaty, this issue will continue.
Definitely, maybe not immediately, maybe 1 year or even 2 years, there will be no problems. Azerbaijan will say, yes, I am happy. I was dreaming about peace in the South Caucasus, and finally, after 30 years of so-called the aggressive or terrorist behavior, Armenians accept my peaceful suggestions. But definitely, if not immediately, then after 1 or 2 years, this issue will arise. Or I will paraphrase my terms. Azerbaijan will raise this issue at the every moment, or at the very moment when he will have some geopolitical possibilities to physically open and control this portion of land, which will connect Azerbaijan with Nakhchivan. So always it will be the issue. So always we should be very careful and to be prepared for such an Azerbaijani attempts. But if we are coming back to the fate of Nagorno-Karabakh, as far as I understand, if Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh will be offered that you will have zero status, there will be no autonomy, but Azerbaijan will guarantee your rights as ethnic minorities within Azerbaijan or as an Azerbaijani citizens of Armenian ethnic origins. And even if some international organizations will be allowed to go to Nagorno-Karabakh to see if really Azerbaijanis are providing some rights for Armenians or are killing or pushing Armenians out, I have great doubts that a majority or even significant minority of Armenians will agree to take Azerbaijani passports, to allow Azerbaijanis back also to Stepanakert, Askeran, Martakert, Martuni, and live as an Azerbaijani citizens or as an ethnic minority within Azerbaijan, having Azerbaijani passports. If peace treaty is signed within this framework, I'm afraid that 90% of Armenian population will leave Nagorno-Karabakh as soon as Russian peacekeepers will leave Nagorno-Karabakh. And again, for Russia, even if Russia is not interested to leave Nagorno-Karabakh, but if Armenia and Azerbaijan signs peace treaty, it will be significantly or extremely difficult for Russia to justify the presence of Russian peacekeepers, especially after November 2025. So by accepting this EU or US facilitated peace treaty, which so-called guarantees, but only with political guarantees, no legally binding guarantees, guarantees territorial integrity of Armenia and guarantees that Azerbaijan and Turkey will not try to, by force, open the Zangezur corridor, which I'm pretty sure they will try. And simultaneously, Armenia agrees that Nagorno-Karabakh will have zero status within Azerbaijan. By signing this treaty, Armenia will provide significant support to Azerbaijan, to US and the EU to push Russian peacekeepers out of Nagorno-Karabakh, if not immediately, at least after November 2025.
One thing that you mentioned makes me think of this issue. You mentioned that Azerbaijan has put essentially a deadline of December 31st of this year. And at the same time, there was this separate meeting held in Prague, the four-way meeting that included Pashinyan, Aliyev, Macron, and Michel. At this meeting, President Macron announced that the EU will be sending a civilian monitoring mission to the Armenian-Azerbaijani border in an effort to basically ease the constant violence due to the Azeri attacks and the invasion of Armenian lands. But this was set to be a 2-month monitoring mission, essentially civilian mission, which would start November 1 and end December 31. What do you think is the coincidence of those dates that the EU does not want to be there, let's say in January of 2023?
Frankly speaking, I don't believe there is a coincidence. Most probably, Azerbaijan told both Armenia and the EU that I will not tolerate Armenia negotiating for negotiations. And if so-called Azerbaijan waited 26 years, I mean the period between May 1994 ceasefire agreement and September 2020, the beginning of Second Karabakh War, this time Azerbaijan sends clear messages that he's not going to wait not only 26 years, he's not going to wait even 26 months. And his vision is very clear. Either Armenia signs peace treaty, or I will put additional military pressure, and maybe even I will start the new 44-day Karabakh War, this time in the territory of Armenia. And most probably also Azerbaijan sends this message to EU. And so it's not coincidence from my perspective that, of course, we all understand that the deployment of EU civilian mission will significantly decrease the Azerbaijani possibilities for large-scale attack. But again, really, it's very interesting that mission will be deployed until the end of October with a period of maximum 2 months, which means that even EU somehow agrees or hints or sends a message to Armenia that, okay, guys, I am able to protect you from large-scale Azerbaijani attack until December 31, 2022. So if EU and Azerbaijan signs peace treaty, or after January 1st, 2023, sorry guys, but I'm not in a position to prevent Azerbaijani attacks.
So first of all, the monitors are unarmed, and correct me if I'm wrong. And they will be
it's a
placed...
civilian mission, and civilian mission, I believe they should not have even light arms.
Yes, and they will be stationed where? On the border, or actually more towards the Armenian side? Essentially, as far as I understand, Azerbaijan even refuses to pull back from its recent aggression.
No. Azerbaijan, frankly speaking, as far as I understand from Azerbaijani perspective, they know Azerbaijani soldiers in Armenian territory. And definitely this EU civilian mission has nothing to do with forcing Azerbaijani troops to withdraw. This civilian mission will be deployed on Armenian territory or on the territory controlled by Armenia, because part of Armenian territory is under Azerbaijani control, but in any case. And I'm not sure how many these observers will be among this civilian mission, but yes, these civilian monitors will be deployed along Armenian-Azerbaijani border on Armenian territory or on part of Armenian territory which is controlled by Armenia. But again, of course, it will be very difficult for Azerbaijan to launch a large-scale attack while the civilian mission is deployed in Armenia. But I don't believe it's a coincidence that Azerbaijan demands the signature of peace treaty until end of 2022, and this EU civilian mission will be deployed until end of 2022 too.
While all this is going on, obviously Russia is preoccupied with its war in Ukraine. But where is Russia really? I mean, it seems that future meetings related to this so-called peace plan are being moved to Brussels. For instance, the next meeting of the Delimitation and Demarcation Commission will continue to be in Brussels. The European High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Joseph Borrell, stated that the meeting of the 44 countries in Brussels without the presence of Russia was an attempt to seek a new world order that doesn't involve Russia. In response to the news about the meetings in Brussels, Maria Zakharova, spokesperson of the Russian MFA, said that Russia has in the past made suggestions to the sides for a comprehensive peace. But Russian analysts more and more believe that Russia is yielding the initiative in the South Caucasus because it simply doesn't have the bandwidth for it while the war in Ukraine is progressing. So another important note is that after Brussels, both Pashinyan and Aliyev traveled to Russia for an informal meeting. I believe it was of the Commonwealth of Independent States. And at this meeting, Pashinyan had no meetings with Putin, and no Armenian-Azerbaijani issue was on the agenda as far as we're aware, even informally. And my last statement and question is, in the past, world powers seem to use Artsakh to find areas of agreement and collaborate on solutions. Now, world powers seem to be trying to use the conflict to score points against each other, or at least that's my perception. How do you see the dynamics of future peace with European monitors on Armenia's border with Azerbaijan, with Russian peacekeepers in Artsakh, and with the Russian military base in Armenia, and with an open NATO-EU war?
Okay, it's a really complicated situation. First, where Russia stands. My understanding is that Russia also was interested in Armenia-Azerbaijan peace treaty, but peace treaty which will fix that Nagorno-Karabakh conflict is not solved, that Armenia and Azerbaijan will continue negotiations, open-ended negotiations without any time frame to solve the Nagorno-Karabakh issue, which will allow Russian peacekeepers to be deployed there, because if both Armenia and Azerbaijan agree that conflict is not solved, no one can demand the withdrawal of Russian peacekeepers, but will automatically mean to open the way for new war, for new ethnic cleansing, and even for new genocide for Nagorno-Karabakh Armenians. And according to Russian press revelations published yesterday or today, really in September, Russia presented its version of peace treaty to both Armenia and Azerbaijan when Mr. Hovik, Russian envoy on Armenia-Azerbaijan relations, visited Yerevan and Baku. And in this peace treaty, there was one article, Article 15, which states that Armenia and Azerbaijan agrees that Nagorno-Karabakh conflict is not over. Negotiations should be continued to solve a mutually accepted solution. Armenia accepted this, Azerbaijan rejected this. Then, according to the same Russian sources, Russia said to Azerbaijan, okay, if you don't want to have this article about Nagorno-Karabakh in agreement, okay, we may have several appendix of this agreement. And this article will be put not in the agreement itself, but in the appendix of agreement. So there is no clear understanding what was Azerbaijani reaction, but at least we understand that there is a Russian elaborated peace treaty, which at least states that Nagorno-Karabakh conflict is not over, and that negotiations should continue, and it's not determining Nagorno-Karabakh status. And there is a EU/US version of peace treaty, and in recent 2 or 3 weeks, US was actually pushed for this peace treaty through the meetings of Armenian and Azerbaijani foreign ministers in New York, and then Armenian and Hikmet Hajev meeting in the White House on September 27. And in this EU and US peace treaty, there is no mention about Karabakh. Like Karabakh is a territory of Azerbaijan with zero status, but Azerbaijan agrees to have some discussions with Armenian ethnic community in Nagorno-Karabakh on how they can provide security of Azerbaijani citizens of Armenian origins. So, of course, Russia is quite preoccupied by a Ukraine war. This is a fact. But also, as I mentioned, I don't believe that Russia is happy to lose its influence in South Caucasus. And I believe Russia now understands that Azerbaijan exploited its weakness by launching this September 13-14 large-scale attack. And maybe Russia believes that Armenian government somehow thinks that Russia is going to lose or already lost the war in Ukraine. Or maybe Russia believes that the US told the Armenian government that the Russians are losers. At the end of the day, they are going to lose the war in Ukraine. So don't take any attention to the peace treaty. Better to listen what we are telling you, because at the end of the day, Russia will lose the war in Ukraine. Russia will be kicked out of South Caucasus. So prepare yourself for the South Caucasus without Russia. And definitely, Russia is not happy with all of this. My understanding is that as soon as, and of course there is a big if, but if, not as soon as, but if Russia will somehow finish the war in Ukraine with acceptable terms for herself or itself, then Russia definitely will put much more attention on South Caucasus. I believe that first there will be some actions against Azerbaijan, because Russia understands very well that simply Azerbaijan exploits its weakness. And as far as I know, Russians and the Russian state, they will never forgive this, as they will never forget this. But again, there is a big if, when and if Russia will be able to end the war in Ukraine with at least acceptable, if not favorable, terms for Russia. But again, as far as war continues in Ukraine, of course, Russia, I don't believe, is in a position to simply prevent the signature of EU-US prepared peace treaty by Armenia and Azerbaijan. I don't believe Russia may prevent this. Of course, Russia will perceive this as a hostile action, especially by Armenia, because at the end of the day, Armenia is Russia's ally and not Azerbaijan. And as I mentioned, if Armenia signs peace treaty with Azerbaijan and accepts zero status for Nagorno-Karabakh, it will contribute to Azerbaijan, US, and EU efforts to kick out the Russians from Nagorno-Karabakh. But we all understand that if Russians are kicked out from Nagorno-Karabakh, this will be the first but not last step to decrease Russian influence in South Caucasus. The next step will be to kick out Russian military base from Gyumri. And the Russians understand this very well. But again, as far as the war continues in Ukraine, they are not in a position to prevent the signature of this peace treaty.
Right.
But they are not happy. And if they will be able to finish the war, or at least the first phase of the war in Ukraine, with acceptable terms on them, they will come back to South Caucasus. And I believe they will try to, let's say, put pressure on those states who exploited their weaknesses or made hostile actions against them.
It sounds insanely complicated.
Really, we are in a very complicated situation because, from as far as I understand, we have a real threat, or maybe blackmail, or whatever we may call it, from Azerbaijan, that is, Armenia signs peace treaty very quickly, which fully satisfies its Azerbaijani demands and violates all Armenian national vital interests, especially on Nagorno-Karabakh issue. Or we may face a war, if not in 2022, at least in early 2023. So it's a really complicated situation because I strongly believe that Armenia should not sign the peace treaty, which will recognize Nagorno-Karabakh zero status within Azerbaijan, because it's a direct way for having, if not no Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, at least having very few Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh. And to finish with Nagorno-Karabakh, essentially, yes, maybe Nagorno-Karabakh will not be transformed into Nakhichevan within 1 or 2 years, but definitely there are huge chances that Nagorno-Karabakh will be transformed into Nakhichevan within 10 or 15 years. But from another point of view, if Azerbaijan really threatens with the war, and if the West is telling us, okay, we can prevent the war only if you sign the peace agreement, and if you don't sign peace agreement, sorry, in that case, you are a non-constructive partner, and in that case, we are not able to prevent Azerbaijan from starting the war. And if Azerbaijan still has a military primacy over Armenia, then it's really becoming a very complicated situation with no good options.
Okay, I don't want to sort of belabor this point, but I think it's important to also, like when you say that essentially Armenian authorities are signaling to the world that they're okay with basically Artsakh being fully within Azerbaijan, and not even for there to be a status, something called Artsakh or Karabakh. I just want to highlight that this is not simply, I think, an opinion that is not that is unfounded. For instance, this week, a civil contract member of parliament, Edward Aghajanyan, stated that Armenia no longer has the opportunity nor resources to safeguard the rights of the people of Artsakh, including security. More things were said in that interview, I believe, which was with Factor TV. When I listened to that interview, for instance, today Armenia essentially subsidizes a lot of the budget in Artsakh. At least, if we cannot take care of them security-wise, at least we can sort of, help them financially. But from this statement, I read that maybe Armenia is even prepared to withdraw financially from Artsakh. Is that how you read it? And do you actually sort of foresee that happening?
I believe, of course, I'm not 100% sure, I cannot be 100% sure, but I believe that when and if peace treaty is signed and ratified by Armenian and Azerbaijani parliaments and enters into full force according to international law, then definitely Azerbaijan will demand from Armenia to withdraw any direct financial transfers to Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, because there will be no Nagorno-Karabakh or no Artsakh, neither republic nor autonomy, nothing. Okay, Azerbaijan may say, I fully understand that Armenia wants to support Azerbaijani citizens of Armenian origin, but there could be no direct financial transfer which will circumvent Azerbaijani financial institutions. So what Azerbaijan may do, they will say, okay, we are ready to open a special fund for the reconstruction or the support of Karabakh region, or maybe for the support of the Azerbaijani citizens of Armenian origins, like a special fund or the special budget line. And if Armenia wants to support Armenian citizens of Azerbaijan, no problem. Azerbaijan can transfer this money to Armenia can transfer this money to the Azerbaijani budget. And then from Azerbaijani budget, we will spend this money to support Azerbaijani citizens of Armenian origin. I am pretty sure that as far as peace treaties is ratified in Armenian and Azerbaijani parliaments and enters into force, Azerbaijan will demand this. And I don't see how can Armenia resist. Because, okay, if there is a peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan, then how Armenia can transfer money to Azerbaijan without Azerbaijani knowledge for some purposes which are not accepted by Azerbaijani state? It makes no sense, frankly speaking.
Right. Okay.
All right, turning to the domestic political scene in Yerevan now for a moment. Two major appointments have consolidated Pashinyan's and his ruling civil contract party's rule in Armenia. On Friday, civil contract loyalist Karen Andreasyan was appointed as the chairman of the Supreme Judicial Council, and at the same time, the parliament also appointed Iranu Hitumanyans, a party loyalist, to another vacant position on the SJC. At the same time, Pashinyan loyalist Vahakan Hovagimyan was appointed as the chairman of the Central Election Committee, the CEC, together with 6 other loyalists who were also appointed by the committee. All of these appointments have been widely slammed by the opposition, as well as international watchdog organizations, as moves that undermine the independence of the country's judicial system with undesirable government influence. And similarly with the CEC appointment, which nearly subordinates the election process to the Prime Minister. The CEC appointment may also be illegal, since the Constitution requires that its members not be partisans. Now Hovagimyan resigned from the ruling party just last week and claims to be neutral and objective. Before going to my question, I want to remind that Hovagimyan had been an employee of Pashinyan's Haygagan Zhamanag, Armenian Times family newspaper, since the late 90s. When Pashinyan became an MP, a member of parliament, Hovagimyan became his assistant. But now he is fair and balanced, just like that. Benyamin, what are your thoughts about these appointments and your concerns about judicial independence and the risks to future elections in Armenia?
Definitely, this cannot be perceived as appointments which will make a democracy in Armenia stronger. This is a very clear perception, and I believe even for Hovakimian elections, there are even problems with law, because he needs 65 votes, and he received 65 votes by also voting himself.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a law, and there are a lot of lawyers who say that, okay, he should not vote for himself. But if he didn't vote, he will receive only 64 votes, and he was not going to be elected. So there is not only the moral issue, but I believe for this Hovakimian issue, there is also the procedural issue. As far as I understand, at least some lawyers and people are telling that, okay, this was really break of, if not law, but at least procedures. But in any case, yes, both Mr. Andreasyan and also Mr. Hovagimyan, they were loyalists of Nikol Pashinyan. They were part of a civil contract party and resigned from party 2 or 3 or 1 week ago, which was totally formal issue. So there was a very famous statement from the third president of Sargsyan when he asked about some illegal activities of MPs or something like that. He said that, but yes, I understand there are a lot of illegal processes, but everything is okay with documents. Unfortunately, now we have the same situation when everything is okay or relatively okay with documents, but we go deep into the content, we understand that nothing is okay. And again, these steps definitely they are not making or will not make democracy in Armenia stronger, but will make democracy in Armenia weaker, unfortunately.
It always sort of amazes me that Pashinyan is able to further entrench his powers, and like to me, this is like I thought that wouldn't be possible, I guess.
Well, this is how over the years a ruling party basically takes over the institutions of the government, right? Pashinyan didn't have any of these abilities in the first couple of years, and leaving the war and other horrible things aside for a second, this is how appointment by appointment over the years, the ruling party civil contract is becoming, essentially they're turning into the Nakhkins at this point.
Frankly speaking, there was a joke in post-Soviet space in many countries that every ruling party in post-Soviet space at the end of the day becomes Communist Party of Soviet Union. It controls everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Asbed, I really I think that, mentioning the Nakhkins and the current, ruling regime in the same sentence may be a little bit unfair, but I do recognize that it was the constitution that was created by Ser Sargsyan that maybe allowed some of these consolidations of power, which are unprecedented in my opinion. But also there was a lot of, riding the wave of emotion, media manipulations. So frankly, I think it's debatable whether any time in the history of Armenia there has been such a strong consolidation of power in one person's hands. And really, this is not even a party, but a single person's hands at this point in time.
I completely agree with you. I mean, I always objected when the Constitution was up for changes because I felt like they were making constant changes to fit the current government, and that's not what a Constitution is about. And the 2015 changes consolidated a huge amount of power in the Prime Minister, and of course, we saw that when you elect the wrong Prime Minister, what happens to the country. Anyway. All right, let's wrap up our topics here. I'd like to ask each of you if there's been something on your mind this past week that you want to talk about. Benjamin, do you have a topic?
One topic which is not directly connected with Armenia but with United States, and it could be also my rant. I am wondering what happened with American political system, which is transformed into the system which produces or relatively produces competition between young or middle-aged politicians into the system which is a fight of old and older politicians. I'm not sure why this happened, but from my perspective, something is wrong in US political system, or is going to be wrong. I'm not sure.
Very interesting. Hovik, what's on your mind?
Well, I think this week the issue of this direct negotiations between Baku and Stepanakert, or the perception of that, is on my mind, because I find that many even Armenian commentators are dishonestly, perhaps, or perhaps mistakenly, trying to portray this as a correction of Kocharyan's mistake. If you remember, many blame Kocharyan, which I don't agree with, that in 1998, he essentially took Artsakh out of the picture of the Minsk group negotiations. In fact, those negotiations between Armenia directly with Azerbaijan started in 1996. But even if we sort of go back to 1996, the parity of power between Baku and Stepanakert was much more different than today. And today, claiming that just because Baku and Stepanakert are talking to each other, that really doesn't mean much, because Baku is going to control the agenda, and it's not going to let, the issue of independence is off the agenda. The most they're going to talk about is the gas prices that Stepanakert will get. So I think it's morally dishonest. I think it's morally reprehensible, and it's intellectually dishonest to bring that as a positive by any Armenian analyst today.
All right, we'll leave it there for today. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time. We'll talk again.
Yes.
Thank you very much for having me.
That's our show this week. We hope you found it informative. Now go find us on social media and follow us. We'll talk to you next week.